Hi everyone, welcome to the latest edition of Pro Wrestling Defined, and joining me on the show today, representing the huge wrestling convention For the Love of Wrestling, brought to you by one of the leading convention companies in the world, Monopoly Events. He runs the Old School Wrestling page on Facebook, and his wrestling merchandise display at For the Love of Wrestling is the envy of all wrestling fans, including myself. Jay Harvey, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing very well, sir. You seem to be doing all right for wrestling merchandise yourself. I can see the signed urn in the background. Very nice piece.
It's most of it is from me. I think like last year, I pretty much rated your stuff, like between the urn, the banners, nearly all, and the photos from the convention as well. Like so, yeah, it's pretty much a For the Love of Wrestling Monopoly Events display here as well.
Always the best way. Yeah, it looks really cool. Thank you, man. Thank you for having me on the show.
Excellent, man. So before we get into the development of the convention and everything, ye have a special quiz going on this weekend to find Europe's biggest wrestling fan, and to celebrate Wrestlemania weekend. Talk about that and talk about some of the private signings you have coming up as well. You have some big names coming on there.
Yeah, we do. So probably start with the private signings because that's a little bit quicker. So we've got a few private signings going on at the moment. So if you want to take part or you want to purchase any of the items from these signings, obviously you can like the For Love of Wrestling page, or obviously you can also jump onto the Monopoly Events, Monopoly Signings Facebook pages as well. So I'm trying to think who's on its way back at the moment. So I know we've got Kevin Nash, we've got Scott Hall, we've got Bret Hart, and there's some more Taker stuff on its way back. If you've got anything that yourself that you would like to get signed, some signings that we've got coming up are Iron Sheik, which is a great one. Also, God, my mind's gone blank now. We've also got the Bushwhackers, which is a really, really fun one.
Lex Luger as well, I think, don't you?
Say again? Yeah,
Lex
Luger's another one that one's closed now, so that one's going to be back, I think, in the next month or so. And then the fine one is a guy by the name of Kane as well. So if you do want anything signed by Kane, we didn't know this at the time, obviously, but he's just about to go into the Hall of Fame tonight, isn't it? So tonight. So Kane, we've got some Kane stuff as well. So if you would like to take part in any of those signings, so that's the Iron Sheik, Bushwhackers, or Kane, please email merchandise@monopolyevents.co.uk, or email a Facebook page and we'll give you that email address as well if that's a little bit easier for you to remember. So yeah, they're the signings that are coming up at the moment. And then this weekend, we think it's a world first. It's, well, I suppose more of a European first, but also a world first as well. We're going to be crowning Europe's biggest wrestling fan 2021. So a little bit of background on that. Obviously, I'm sure you know yourself, Jonathan. This time of year is the biggest time of the year for the For Love of Wrestling convention. This is the time when we're all going absolutely crazy. Because we are looking forward to the biggest convention in Europe, the biggest wrestling convention in Europe. Unfortunately, and I'm sure they need no explanation, circumstances mean that, events like that aren't possible just yet. So that's now been pushed back. But we just didn't want to let it pass without doing anything, because it's a global wrestling convention. It is by the fans, for the fans. I'm a lifelong wrestling fan. So is Andy, so is Jason, so is plenty of other people involved in the event itself. So this for us, even though it's normally such a busy time of the year, it's also so much fun this time of the year. So we didn't want to let it pass without doing anything. And we thought, what could we do? What can we do that nobody else has done? Well, we started off with, let's find, the UK's biggest wrestling fan. And then we thought, no, let's go bigger. We are, For Love of Wrestling is Europe's biggest wrestling convention. So why not find Europe's biggest wrestling fan? So that is due to take place this weekend. And there's going to be a number of heats over the weekend. I think we've got 3 or 4 penciled in at the moment, but we're just going to see how tickets sell throughout the week. There's a good chance even more heats could be put on. But there's one on Saturday at 4 p.m. in the afternoon. and then there's 2 on Sunday, 1 at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, also 1 at 8 o'clock in the evening as well. Now, the finalists from each of those individual heats, and there'll be more than one finalist, I think it's like the top 4, top 5, are going to be taken through to a final. And the winner will receive a one-of-a-kind, a brand spanking new, custom-built belt, which does actually say in it, I don't want to give too much away because we've been working on the design, but of course it does say on there, Europe's biggest wrestling fan 2021. And this is going to be a title that someone can be very, very proud of. I say that they will be the first ever person that's been crowned Europe's biggest wrestling fan. It's just £5 to enter. Your whole family can enter. We don't expect each member of your family to pay £5 to enter. So you know what? Everybody loves spending, well, at the moment, there's not a hell of a lot to do apart from to spend time with your family at home. So £5, your whole family can play. It's a speed quizzing event. They are so much fun as well. It's about the 3rd or 4th one we've done. We did one for the Royal Rumble, and we also did one for the Elimination Chamber. And that's where it was actually the Elimination Chamber, because we almost wanted it to theme it around that particular pay-per-view, where we got the idea from perhaps doing heats and then having a final sort of Elimination Chamber knockout. So we've done the same for WrestleMania. And as I say, somebody's walking away with that incredible title, also the bragging rights, and also a brand new custom-built, one-of-a-kind title belt, which I'm hoping is going to arrive tomorrow. I've been sent all of these fantastic pictures, and I'm hoping it's going to arrive here tomorrow, so we can get some videos out there as well for people, because the belt itself is absolutely stunning. I would want it for my own collection if I wasn't helping organise this. So, yeah, it's going to be a really busy weekend. But like I say, we just wanted to do something fun because it's been a tough time for wrestling fans. I mean, it's been a tough time for everybody. But, wrestling fans particularly recently, because we announced that the event isn't going to happen this year at all. It's going to be moved to next year. But we still want to do something for everybody. And, there's lots and lots of stuff happening online this weekend across different things. And I'm sure you're getting together with your wrestling mates, and I'm getting together with mine over the course of the weekend to watch the biggest show of the year. But we wanted to get involved in that as well and have some fun. So, yeah, that's the signings, and also Europe's biggest wrestling fan competition.
Excellent. And I'll put the links in the description of the video for anybody that wants to go and check that out. So we'll get into the development of the convention. Gosh, it's crazy to think that it's been 2 years since the first one. But gosh, it's absolutely flown by. But God, I mean, what an amazing weekend. Like Undertaker, I mean, that was a dream come true for me to meet him. He's my all-time favorite, as probably noticed from the merch and everything. But and Sting then as well, as you had him at Comic-Con. I met him at Comic-Con Liverpool. But like, for Love of Wrestling, Undertaker, Bret, Sid, Nash, Hall, there was such a massive array of talent there. And so talk about the development of how you got for Love of Wrestling together.
Well, it's, you know what, yeah, you are. It is nearly 2 years to the day. I can tell you why, because I know it's the one thing Facebook's good is for reminding where you were sort of 1 year, 2 years ago. And I know that 2 years ago today, I was at WrestleCon, funnily enough, in New York. Sort of met Jake the Snake and Ted DiBiase and Scarlett Bordeaux at the time. She obviously wasn't as well known as she is now, and people like that. And bumped into Marty Jannetty, funnily enough. And then it was after that. It was after that week. Obviously, everybody came back from WrestleMania, and For Love of Wrestling was the following week after that. So it was this incredible sort of few weeks of just sort of nothing but non-stop wrestling. But yeah, wrestling. I'm sure, lots of the people watching this will be aware, For Love of Wrestling falls under the umbrella of Monopoly Events, as you alluded to at the start of the show. Now, Monopoly Events runs some of the biggest conventions in Europe. Obviously, Comic-Con Scotland, which has absolutely gone incredibly big over the last couple of years. Comic-Con Liverpool, which is huge. Comic-Con Manchester, some of the newer ones, For the Love of Sci-Fi, For the Love of Horror, For the Love of Fantasy, all of these sort of events, they're all part of the Monopoly Events family. Wrestling itself, I know that, I think it was Comic-Con 3 years ago, and perhaps Comic-Con the year before as well. Andy sort of tested the water with some wrestling guests. Edge was there one year. Sting was there one year, and I'm really annoyed I didn't know about sort of these events then, because they're two guys that are certainly on my bucket list. But also Gail Kim as well was somebody else who we've had over, and I think Andy sort of realised that there was a market out there. I think some of the people were coming to some of his Comic-Con events solely for the purpose of meeting the wrestlers. And Andy's fantastic. I think it's almost the way he thinks. Andy's a fan himself. So it's not a case of a suit in a sort of in an office somewhere, just deciding what he thinks people will want. Andy will put on events that he would want to attend himself, which is why they're always so incredible. So yeah, I think the idea was, well, we've got a horror event, which is kind of niche, but it's got such a huge, passionate fan base. We've got a sci-fi event, which again is a little bit niche, but it's you think about like Star Wars and all of those types, Star Trek. I mean, it's a little bit niche. It's not my bag, but the people who love that sort of stuff really, really love that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And wrestling's a similar thing. I mean, like, generally people are wrestling fans for life. You watch it once, you either get the bug or you don't, and that's sort of the way things are with most wrestling fans. So there is a market there. I'm sure if you read any of the autobiographies of the greats, people like Bret Hart, is my personal guy. He mentions in his book, numerous times, the UK fans, are some of the best fans in the world. Dynamite Kid, he may be a bit biased, but I know he mentioned it in his book as well. So of course, not only was it, it had enough of a fan base to do it, but it also had one of the best fan bases in the world. So that's why Liverpool is such a perfect place to do it as well, which is great. So that's how it happened, and I wasn't involved with it when it first came about. Actually, I was a little bit late to the party. So I like as you mentioned earlier, I've collected wrestling memorabilia for nearly a decade now. And somebody sort of sent it my way and said, do you know about this? And I think the very first two guests that they announced were Ric Flair and Bret Hart. Yeah. And I was like, where's this thing just suddenly come from? And now they're announcing Bret Hart and Ric Flair. You if you're like me, and maybe how I would have done it, you probably start off very small. You try and get maybe a couple of mid-level names, maybe a few in UK names, and you almost gradually snowball it like that. Whereas sort of bang, Andy went really big the first year, and as you said, it was Ric Flair, and then it was Bret the Hart, and then it was Undertaker, who'd never done one of these things ever. So yeah, it really was a case of go big or go home from the outset. And I got in contact with them and said, look, I've got this merchandise. It is one of the biggest collections out there, period. Do you fancy me coming down and just showing it off for a couple of days? Maybe give, because I've been to conventions myself. I just mentioned WrestleCon. I loved WrestleCon. I really did. And I'm speaking from a completely fan point here. Apart from meeting wrestlers, there wasn't a hell of a lot to do at WrestleCon, I found. And I had a great time there, but that's sort of what that's for. Whereas Andy was trying to do so much more with that, do all the Q&As, do all of the prop builds, have people like myself exhibiting, that sort of thing. So yeah, I was on board with it very, very quickly. And the first year, it was just incredible. I mean, it was just, 10,000 wrestling fans all just, in the exhibition centre Liverpool for 2 days, just having the absolute time of their lives. People have met, from that one event, people have created lifelong friendships. Some people it's completely reignited their love for wrestling. And what I mean by that is some people, their children were into wrestling. I spoke to, and I'm still, talked to a couple of people from the event who weren't really wrestling fans at the time, but their kids were. So they brought their kids to the event because they wanted to meet Bret Hart, or the kids wanted to meet Ric Flair, or someone like that. And then the parents enjoyed it that much that the parents are now wrestling fans again, and they might have not watched it for 20 years. So yeah, the first year was just an incredible success. And I mean, everything from everything just seemed to fall into place. I mean, Undertaker doing his first appearance at a convention, possibly period, apart from outside of WWE events, I think that may have been one of the first ones he'd ever done. So that created this huge stir. The lineup, we've already mentioned what the lineup looked like. Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Booker T, Bret Hart, Ric Flair, Bruce the Barber Beefcake, Marty Jannetty, the $1 Million Man, RVD, Kelly, Summer Rae, just to name just a few of them. And obviously then the surprise of we had Pete Dunne as well, who was quite a late addition, but then Pete Dunne also turned up on the Saturday night at the Future Shock Wrestling show. So everything just seemed to fall into place brilliantly, and fans just walked away well, I think fans walked away with two things, really. I think they absolutely loved it, but I think fans walked away very, very grateful as well that somebody's going out of the way to do something like this for the wrestling fans across Europe, because it's something I've been a wrestling fan for over 30 years, and I've been crying out for something like this.
Me too.
I'll be honest, I was completely envious over the last maybe the last 10 to 15 years is when you started to hear about Comic Cons. Comic Cons have always been about, I don't know, the Star Wars or the Marvel or the superheroes or even computer games and stuff like that. There was never really anybody focusing on wrestling. So, it's great that somebody's finally doing it. And I think fans have taken to it like a duck to water. And it's brought so many wrestling fans around Europe together as well. I've been surprised. I knew, obviously, there was other wrestling fans out there. I didn't think I was the only one, but I didn't realise just how many wrestling fans are still out there in the UK and across Europe, and have been following it as long as I have, maybe even longer.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like it is amazing for bringing everyone together. Like I met a lot of people over there as well, and yeah, it was absolutely awesome. Talk about some of your actual kind of personal highlights from it, from guys like you mentioned. Brett is your all-time favorite guy. What were some of your kind of favorite interactions with some of the wrestlers there, and from the WWE Superstars event you do as well? That was absolutely huge as well.
It was, and that sort of seemed to turn around on a bit of a, turned around overnight, because it was the WWE Superstars event, which some people won't know about. It was a separate event done at Bowlers in Manchester, or Manchester Exhibition Centre, Bowlers Exhibition Centre. Its full title, and that got turned around in perhaps maybe 4 or 5 weeks. It's when WWE were coming over to do an event, and obviously then we were very lucky to get the opportunity to work with those guys and bring them in for a day. That was brilliant as well. And when you do a wrestling convention, obviously, it generally just because it perhaps appeals to more people, or they've got more time, or they're not doing shows for the WWE. A lot of wrestling conventions, you tend to get perhaps the older guys who perhaps have a little bit more free time to do this sort of stuff. Whereas the WWE Superstars event was quite literally that. It was some of the most contemporary and best wrestlers in the world today. People like AJ Styles, people like Seth Rollins, who at the time were perhaps classed as the 2 best in the world right there and then.
Absolutely, yeah.
Sasha Banks, who was there. Sasha Banks, who were, I've heard rumours that her match and Bianca Belair is going to headline the first night of Mania on Saturday.
Yeah, and Lashley was there as well.
Lashley was there, of course, as well. My own personal favourite was Bray Wyatt. So I've loved the Fiend. I liked the Wyatt family from the start. It took me back perhaps to that sort of sinister edge that Jake the Snake had, and I don't think we've seen it in wrestling for a long time, where somebody's really got a great grasp of psychology and a little bit, take it a little bit dark, take it a little bit twisted. And I love, for me, I really like wrestlers who can do that, and that's what I thought the Wyatt family brought. So then when he came back as the Fiend, and it was perhaps a little bit pantomime, but perhaps it's in other parts a little bit darker as well, which I really enjoyed. So Bray Wyatt straight away went up on my list of sort of bucket list of people I wanted to meet. So to get to work with Bray, and Seth Rollins I worked with on the day as well. Yeah, that was a real dream come true. Bray Wyatt particularly was absolutely phenomenal. One of the nicest guys I think I've ever met, and across any convention I've either worked at or attended. So yeah, that was really cool. Bret Hart coming over to actually have a look at my collection for Love of Wrestling, because I'm a huge Bret Hart fan. So there's obviously a lot of Bret Hart stuff in there. So there's I'm not sure if there's any Bret Hart figures I don't have. So he was having a good look around there. There was a bit of stuff around Bret and Owen. So he was having a look there, and obviously the three original Figures Inc. WWF belts, which Bret had also signed at a previous time I met him. So they were all on there in display. So it it was purposely done, but because I am such a big Brett fan, but it was almost half my display was Bret Hart anyway. So he really enjoyed that. And at the time, similar to yourself, I was doing a podcast for the Full of Wrestling, and I thought, well, who would be really interesting to get on that podcast to talk about, doing an event like Full of Wrestling? So I thought, well, you know what, go big or go home. So just go and have a chat with Eric Bischoff, because he knows he knows a couple of things about media and all that type of stuff. So, doing a podcast. So I just went over to Eric and said, look, Eric, I do the podcast for this event. Can I have a quick chat with you for sort of 10, 15 minutes? And he couldn't have been warmer, and he couldn't have been nicer, and he couldn't have been more complimentary about the event and the fans. And I think I was a little bit, I'm not sure what I said to him. I said, oh, what's it like, and what's the perception of, like, the UK? We're a very little island in the grand scheme of things. And he was like, no, stop there. He said, like, the reputation of the UK fans all over the world is absolutely phenomenal. He said, like, you're also polite, you're also well mannered, you're also glad that we've traveled to be here. And he said that, all of the wrestlers, they love coming over here. It's not just something that gets said on TV. He said genuinely they do really like coming over here. So that was really nice as well. But I'd probably say the highlight, we did an event, God, when was it now? Everything just seemed to roll into the last year is a bit of a blur, but I think it was December 2019. So the same year as For Love of Wrestling. We actually went and did an event with The Undertaker in Germany, in Dusseldorf. And that was crazy because I went over to work it with Monopoly Events. And what I didn't expect, obviously I expected to meet Taker and, got to spend a bit of time with him. But Taker, again, is such a warm, and it makes me laugh when people complain that he doesn't smile on photos. He's the Undertaker. He's,
yeah. I mean, come on, like.
But he's actually a very warm, a very engaging, and a very funny guy. But we actually got to go out with him on the Friday night, and it was just going on a night out with the Undertaker round all the bars and nightclubs in Germany was a bit of a weird experience. It's not something that's easily forgotten. A really funny moment, for instance, is when one of the bouncers recognised him. They said, "Oh, it's the Undertaker," and then the other bouncer started to dispute it and saying, "No, he's an Undertaker tribute act. That's not the actual Undertaker." I mean, I can speak sort of German. I can speak German at maybe sort of GCSE level. So I was getting a bit. I could understand what they were saying to each other, and then I was trying to relate to the people that we were with. But no, it was brilliant fun. I was like, well, I mean, you don't get many tribute acts that are sort of like 6'6", whatever the Undertaker is. But yeah, so that for me. It was just a very surreal moment being in the German disc. It was literally a German discotheque we were in. I think that was actually the name of the bar that we were in Dusseldorf. Sort of just having a couple of beers and chilling out with the Undertaker, and that's probably my highlight of the last few years. It's not easily beaten.
Oh, that's awesome! Gosh, more envy from my side anyway. More envy. But so talk about where the convention is at now. Where the date that you have set so far, given the current circumstances and everything.
Yeah, so it is, as I say, it's Europe's largest wrestling convention. But as you know, if you think about some of the names you've already mentioned, it's an absolute stellar cast. All killer, no filler, to sort of recite the old cliche. But that's what it is. And the lineup that was scheduled for this year, and I'm, writing off some of the names, Kurt Angle, Shawn Michaels, Jeff Hardy, Trish Stratus, Money Inc., the Dudley Boys, the Steiners, Demolition, people like that. The lineup, the lineup was absolutely brilliant. If anything, I think the lineup had raised the bar this year overall. I mean, of course, we had guests like The Undertaker, 2 years ago. But if I look at almost like the medium level of a guest that was coming this year, I'd say we'd actually raised the bar. Now, one of the things that Andy prides himself on is the quality of events. He lives and dies by the quality of the events because he's a fan himself. So he's very, very, very much on his radar is my event, the quality of the event that I would want to go to and I would love being at. So if the event was going to go ahead this year, some of the guests would not have been able to make it. We don't know what's going to happen with travel restrictions in the next 6 months or anything else. So it just didn't feel right, I don't think, for, to put on the event this year. If there was any chance at all that it wasn't going to be at the level that's demanded of events by Monopoly events. People get used to the quality events of Monopoly events very, very quickly. One thing I found when I've had conversations with people is that they will start by going to perhaps Comic-Con Liverpool, and then they'll really see the quality that's on offer. So then they'll go to Comic-Con Manchester, and then Comic-Con Scotland, and then they'll go full of a wrestling. Very easily, people just like attending, the actual Monopoly events. So yeah, it made sense to me not to do it. So it's not happening this year, unfortunately. However, we're going to be back bigger, badder, and better than ever next year. It's happening on the 23rd, the weekend of the 23rd and the 24th of April 2022. It's going to be in the Liverpool, it's going to be in the Exhibition Centre, Liverpool. So that's exactly the same venue that we've had it in previously, and anybody who's attended Comic-Con Liverpool, exactly in that same venue as well. So we've got a year to build it, and so it's going to be incredible. Now, I know there was Andy mentioned to me, I think it's perhaps a year ago now, that we always wanted to see it like a bit of a 3-day event, a bit like a festival of wrestling, and that is still the plan. So hopefully we'll still be able to kick off on the Friday night with a wrestling show somewhere in and around Liverpool. I know the guys from TNT Extreme are going to do it this year. Hopefully that will happen again. And then Saturday, we'll have the wrestling convention. Saturday night, again, we'll have the wrestling show and the after party as well. And make sure you get tickets for the after party, because you never quite know who's going to turn up at that. And then the convention again on the Sunday. So yeah, it is now a year away. But that gives us a year to think of all weird and wonderful things and amazing things to welcome the fans back.
Definitely. And just before I leave you go, I'd be remiss not to, since it's Wrestlemania week, give me some of your thoughts on Wrestlemania this weekend. Some of your predictions. What matches are you looking forward to, and all that?
What am I looking forward to this weekend? Well, we'll give it a final plug. Obviously, the thing I'm looking forward to most this weekend is being able to crown Europe's biggest wrestling fan. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to this week. And for anybody who wants to take part in that, please just jump on the For Love of Wrestling Facebook page. You'll find all the details on there. What am I looking forward to this year at WrestleMania? I always try and look on the bright side of things, and I'm very much aware that it's not going to be a full stadium this year. I've experienced a full stadium as a fan there live, and also watching it on TV. And has been pointed out many times. Wrestling does really lack when there's no crowds there. So I'm glad they've got some fans back this year, but I also know it's not going to be the same. And I think for that reason of not relying on the in-ring action as we've sort of in a classic style, I really enjoyed the cinematic matches last year, whether that be the Boneyard match or whether that be, in fact, the Firefly Funhouse match, which I think, I think that deserves a lot more credit than it actually got, because they really, really thought out of the box for it. And I'm wondering what we're going to get this year. I'm sure WWE will be doing something. What I found was quite strange is that on the last Raw before Mania, we didn't see a lot, if at all, anything of Bray Wyatt, Randy Orton, or Alexa Bliss. And that's, for me, has been one of the best feuds this year. I think the way they've done it, and Bray disappearing and coming back, and I've heard rumours of is the returned Fiend actually who we think it is, and all that sort of great stuff. So I like being surprised. I really like being surprised at WrestleMania. I like something that I didn't see coming. So yeah, I'm hoping that that's going to go down well. If I had to I think the Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair match is going to be something really, really special as well. I think there's a few matches that could perhaps steal the show this year. It's always great to see Edge in the wrestling ring, and him and Daniel Bryan, both who we may never expected to see them back in the wrestling ring at all. Never mind together at WrestleMania. Yeah, so that's that's really good as well. So yeah, my prediction is that there's going to be a few surprises, and I think, although I think wrestling fans in general agree that perhaps the weekly product that we get from WWE over the last year to 18 months hasn't been fantastic. I think one of the things that they've done really, really well is the pay-per-views.
Yes.
So
Completely agree.
So I think we are. I think we're going to get a few surprises this year, this weekend, and I can't wait. You know, it's just a fun weekend of nothing but wrestling, and I can't wait for it.
Yeah, me too. One of the matches I'm most looking forward to is Lashley and McIntyre. Like I've wanted Lashley to become champion with so long. It's funny, when I met him actually at the WWE Superstars event, like, you know, I was telling him, you know, like how him and Brock is one of my dream matches, and how I really want to see him get that main event push. And he seemed almost like depressed about it, almost about the spot he was in at the time. He seemed really down about it, like he was, you know, really craving that opportunity. Like, you know, he was saying, I really wish, you know, they'd give me the ball, you know, and because he was involved in the Lana storyline at the time.
He was, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, like, you know, he was kind of joking about that and stuff, like, but yeah, he you know, you could see the itch for more in him at the time. Like, so it's really cool to see him in that prominent position. They're doing it really well. Like, I love his new entrance and everything. Like, it's super cool. So I'm really looking forward to that. Like, and
it's been a long journey for him as well, hasn't it? I mean, like, you know, I know we look at someone like Drew McIntyre and we say, yeah, he's come a long way, and it didn't work out for him the first time. I mean, similar to Lashley. I mean, Lashley went to TNA, which, you know, it's not on the same level as WWE. So it was almost, I know he did really well there, but it was almost a step back for him. And he seemed to sort of lose his passion for a bit, went into a bit UFC and MMA and that type of thing. So, yeah, I think he has got, and I hope that they actually do something to actually paint the picture of that journey as well, because I think it's a really interesting one for Lashley.
Definitely. Yeah, no, it's super cool to see him in that. I'm not sure who I'm going for in that, because I really like McIntyre. I think he stepped up by leaps and bounds this year. Yeah. Like, you know, through the whole pandemic era, he's really carried the company well. Like, so, you know, it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out as well. And it'll be a hot match. I think that's actually opening night one.
Well, it's interesting it's interesting that it's opening. Yeah. Now, I wonder if it's going to be opening because perhaps we're not going to get a clean finish. And you alluded to perhaps Brock Lesnar being a dream match there. And, you know, Brock Lesnar's been very, very quiet for 12 months now. I mean, are we going to see Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania? I mean, he's certainly a superstar. This is what I mean. You don't know what's going to happen this weekend. And they're the best types of WrestleManias. I know it's not got the hype of a normal Mania because of the circumstances, but I generally don't like the Rumble this year. I had no idea with the Rumble this year. And I like that, because that makes me more interested and that makes me more inclined to tune in.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you there. And like even the Orton Bray match, like there's a fair bit of ambiguity about that still. Like you were saying, you know, they didn't really do anything on Raw or anything. So there is that little bit of mystery with everything now this year. So, and I find a lot of the times, like, as well with Fastlane didn't have exactly a great build-up, but the pay-per-view itself turned out to be freaking amazing, I thought. Like, Brian Reigns was, gosh, that was absolutely unbelievable, I thought. And yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that triple threat as well. Like, that should be awesome. But, sorry, what was that?
No, I said, yeah, I completely agree.
But actually, just one thing, just before I leave you go, you're a big Man U fan as well, from what I understand. How are you feeling about everything Man United at the moment?
Do you know what? Funnily enough, I'm feeling all right. I think, you know what, we've got quarter-final football this Thursday, which is always good. We've definitely got Champions League, you'd imagine now, next year as well. So for me, everything's on up and up. You know, we've got so many teams that have made it through to the quarterfinals of the Champions League this year as well. So, you know, and with United and Arsenal as well in the quarters of the Europa, I'm wondering if we could even see a Premier League final of the Champions League and a Premier League final of the Europa League as well. That would certainly stamp the Premier League marker down well and truly in Europe. But I don't think it's unthinkable, is it, really, the way that the fixtures have turned out?
No, it isn't. And yeah, that would be super interesting. I think it would probably be a fairly good matchup for us as well. Like, you know, because we're on pretty good form. Like, and gosh, Bruno has just been a revelation for us. Like, you know, Greenwood and all are starting to step up as well. Even Maguire, I think, has actually improved a fair bit in the last.
Yeah,
5 or 6 games or
I think people give the credit to Henderson because Henderson's come in. But if you actually look at the United's results over the past sort of maybe 10 to 12 games, Maguire and Lindelof have really improved their game. Luke Shaw for me has probably been United's best player this year, even better than Bruno, I think. And obviously Wan-Bissaka for me is the best right back in football at the moment.
Unbelievable.
So, the defence itself's got a lot better. And I think actually the one thing that Bruno's actually done, I think he's taken some of the pressure off Pogba because Pogba's almost like not the main guy anymore. So I think probably even Pogba's perhaps enjoying his football even more than he was. So, yeah, I mean, good luck to all of, good luck to all. It's been a hard year. So good luck to all of the English teams over the next couple of weeks. Even Liverpool and City.
Ooh, I don't know if I'll back you up on that one, man.
I'm trying to be positive. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. Look, they've had a pretty hard season, so I'll give them some sympathy. It's easy to give them props when they're down, anyway. Like last year, maybe not so much.
Definitely.
But so, do you want to give the stuff one more plug just before we head off?
Definitely. So, guys, obviously you can find For Love of Wrestling across all of the usual suspects. We are on Facebook. We've got both a page and a group on Facebook. We're on the gram, as the kids term it these days, as well. We are also on Twitter as well. So if you want to get involved or you want to send anything in for any of the signings, please email merchandise@monopolyevents.co.uk. If you're unsure about that, just message the For Love of Wrestling Facebook page, and I'll give you the email for that as well. But yeah, guys, get involved with us trying to find your biggest wrestling fan this week. You and your entire family can play for the low price of £5. And imagine that you and your entire family get named as Europe's biggest wrestling fans this year. You get the bragging rights, you get to win the competition. You get to spend a great evening together as well because it's speed quizzing and it's really, really fun. And there'll be loads of other wrestling fans on there with you as well. And of course, you get the one-of-a-kind title belt. Again, jump on the For Love of Wrestling Facebook page to find out all of the details for that. But no, that's it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on, man. It's been great talking to you. Thanks so much, bud.
And you, Jonathan. Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for tuning into Pro Wrestling Defined on YouTube. Please like the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to the YouTube channel to keep up with all future content. And please follow Pro Wrestling Defined on Twitter, Instagram, and like us on Facebook.